Adguru Namaha, Chikadguru Namaha, Satguru Namaha, Sri Gurudeva Namaha, Adguru Namaha, Chikadguru Namaha, Satguru Namaha, Sri Gurudeva Namaha, Adguru Namaha, Chikadguru Namaha, Satguru Namaha, Sri Gurudeva Namaha. I'm Guru Fateh Singh, and I'm a teacher of Kundalini Yoga. It's Father's Day today, and I'm going to dedicate this short video to my father. Actually, I have three fathers. Yeah, I've earthly father, Heinz Joachim Grossmann, born in Germany. I say to him, Dankeschön. He taught me some basic life lessons, and I'm very grateful to him for all the hard work and keeping me going, feeding me, sheltering me, and teaching me in my early years. I also have Guru Gobind Singh as my spiritual father, father of the Khalsa. He taught us how to live a magnificent life as a saint and a soldier. He gave us the Khalsa family, and I'm very grateful to him. And in between, before I knew of Guru Gobind Singh, Yogi Bhajan played a very big role and still plays a big role in my life. He taught me the concept that we can live as healthy and happy and holy, and he taught quite a lot of ways of going about that. I'm very grateful to all three. I'm a very blessed person. It happens that these last few days I've been doing a historical overview of the transition from the Woodstock time to what we call Steelstock time, 2012. So from about 1962 to 2012, and a lot of things have happened, and it helped me to have a perspective on the life and the teachings of Yogi Bhajan. And given that some people, particularly on the social media, are expressing their great discontent, and more than that, even their hatred of my teacher, I thought I would just take a little bit of time today on Father's Day and share some of the reasons that I honor and respect and love Yogi Bhajan, and deeply appreciate his contributions. So the first thing I will say, before I go to my notes, the first one's very easy to remember, is he taught us that we have a birthright, and he taught us that he embraced us, and he showed us that we can be ourselves. He encouraged us to be ourselves, which is a very important thing. A lot of the world will tell you, no, you've got to conform, you've got to fit in, you've got to shut up. And Yogi Bhajan didn't buy into that. He taught us to Satnam. His basic mantra was Satnam, which basically means be yourself. Be true to your true self. Sometimes I call it intrinsic being. Not to be externally obsessed with what's going on outside, but let your motivation come from within. Let your self-respect, your self-value come from within. And he was all on board for that. We were hippies, we were rebels. We wouldn't have followed him. We wouldn't have listened to him if he hadn't given us the license, the permission, and encouraged us to do just that. So that's number one. Number two, he gave us a methodology. He gave us Kundalini Yoga. He gave us Sikh Dharma. And he taught us a lot of natural healing things to find balance, to find equilibrium. Some of us have been doing very radical things, living out of balance. And he taught us how to find our balance so that we can live a harmonious and balanced life. Right? Very important. If you don't have it, you recognize it's a big thing missing in your life, the balance. He also taught us how to not only be balanced, but also to raise our energy. He gave us discipline. He gave us Kundalini Yoga. He gave us sadhana. Gave us a lot so we can aspire to be high and to stay high without drugs, to live in an aspirational, inspirational way, and not to have a good day, have a great day, and feel that we deserve that, and that we can do that, and we can share with others. Yeah, one of the shortcomings of the drug culture, there are a few shortcomings. One is that eventually, if you're sharing with other people, you run out. Kundalini yoga, there's endless yoga, there's endless meditation. You never run out. You can always share. It's a beautiful thing. And so some of us were bombers. Oh yeah, some of us were very serious about destroying the system, we called it, the military-industrial complex, the business of war, the business of people under business, the business of profits over people. And he said, no, the system needs work, it's true, but don't destroy it. Transform it. Become a part of it. And grow, because we were still quite young, grow into it and evolve it so it can evolve with you, and it can evolve with Aquarian values, with open and aspirational and kind values. So don't blow up the system, grow into it. And so we thought, okay, maybe we won't blow it up. And that was the third teaching. The fourth teaching, and related to that, he taught us the value of money. He, some of us didn't believe in money. Some of us came from Christian background, and Jesus said money is the root of all evil. Some of us believe that. Some of us came through Marxism, where he taught, from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. And we could see that, a lot of people in America and Canada and around the world were not living that way. They were hoarding money, and they were exploiting people they were driving great satisfaction from making some people poor so they could become rich. And we didn't like that. But Yogiji said, you need money. Money is as money does, and if you have nothing, then you have nothing to share. So I see people on the street every day who are needy, and I always have something to give them, and I'm very grateful that I have money. So that was the fourth. And he taught us family values, not just in the traditional. He said basically, we came from a very anti-family kind of a place. Our families were communes, and we had what we called free love, and actually it was wanton sex. And he taught us the value of having a cozy home, so you can raise beautiful children in that cozy home. And to have the cozy home, women have to have self-respect, and they have to be respected. He said, where the woman is not respected, there'll never be peace on earth. So we had a big war going on. We thought, well, maybe we should try this. And we bought into it. We got married, and we had children. And we did our best. So that was that. The value of children, indeed. The Yogi Bhajan came from the Sikh tradition, and one of the gurus of the Sikh tradition was 5 years old. So he taught us to respect our children, to respect them, and to see the wisdom in their eyes, and to acknowledge that, and not to treat them as pets or as furniture, but to teach them from a young age to be great, and they deserve to be great, and that we're not greater than they are just because we're big and we can vote and we go to the liquor store. There's a lot going in children, and so he taught us to acknowledge that, and we had yoga camps for our children. We did a lot of things to help them to be great, because he instructed us in that. Oh, and he gave us healing methodology. Some of us were very toxic. Some of us had been taking toxins. Some of us just had a very toxic environment. He taught us to heal, to balance. He taught us foods. I never heard of foods as medicine. It's an old Greek idea. Bananas for your nervous system. Celery to develop strong nervous system. Beets to clear your liver. Onions also for cleaning your blood. Garlic. I saw a book once like this thick about benefits of garlic. Russians call it their penicillin, Russian penicillin. So he taught us onions, garlic, and ginger became our Trinity roots, and he taught us how to use that. how to use yoga, different postures, how to use meditation to heal and to come to peace with ourselves so we can be ourselves. It's no good being yourself if you're sick. Um, so that was a great blessing he gave us. That's like number 6 or 7 that I'm giving you. He gave us so much. I'm going to continue on my list. Um, yeah, Yogi Bhajan was a great networker. So by his role modeling, um, he taught us to network. You can only do so much on your own. So Yogi Bhajan, he would meet all the spiritual teachers, all the different denominations. He met popes, and he encouraged the best in everybody. It was a great role modeling. Back in those days, people were still, even with different religions, they were quite hesitant. And today, of course, some people still are. But he said, we're all one humanity. It was Guru Nanak's message. And he encouraged us to reach out, to network, and to help to make a better world together. That's the only way it works. Yeah. And he taught us a very important truth. All paths don't lead to the same place. It's not true. Some people say that it's sort of a cheap way of making people feel comfortable with you, but it's simply not true. If you're into self-denial and I'm into self-affirmation, we're not going the same place. There's no way we're going the same place. So, very important lesson. Very important lesson. It's good to know. I mean, if you're not going anywhere, then it's easy to say, "Oh, we're all ending up in the same place," but it's not true. You want to go to New York from Toronto, there's a direction you want to go. You could go the opposite direction. The Earth is round, but it's a very hard way to go, and it's through the Arctic. It's a lot of hardship there. You might not make it. You might die. So if it's good to know where you're going, and it's good to take the best route there and not be distracted. All paths don't lead the same place. It's not true. And Yogi Bhajan, some of us thought, wow, he looks like a Sikh, he must have all those religious hang-ups. But no, he talked many times about the failings of religion. More people died through so-called holy wars than were saved through conversion. Religion can be a big obstacle. Fanaticism, ritualism, formalism. I mean, let's say Jesus taught love and Buddha taught love as well, but the stuff that people put onto those teachings, those very simple teachings, can be very toxic and can be very disempowering. So he taught us about that. Very important lesson. Not everybody would teach that. I studied, I've just particularly now with my study about the last 50 years or so, there was a lot of spiritual teachers, but not everybody taught us that. A lot of things Yogiji taught that nobody touched with a 10-foot pole. And he taught us. He didn't dwell on it. But you can pull up lectures where Yogiji talked about the oligarchy of America. Other countries have it too. But how so very few people own so very much, and it's not right. It's absolutely unjust. It's corrupt. And they own the system, they own the justice system, they own the political system. It's not a good system. A lot of yogis would say, oh, the world is this and I am that, and let's just go and meditate and forget about it. Yogiji was very politically engaged. He did engage with the Democratic Party, not a perfect party by any means, but he also said that America has a fundamental problem in distribution of wealth, and he didn't shy away from that. Which leads us to a second problem, a bigger problem still, which is the proliferation of nuclear weapons. I mean, did you sign off and say, let's have a nuclear war? I give permission to destroy the whole planet. There are very few people who have this, think they have this God-given right to declare nuclear war and to use nuclear weapons. I don't give them the permission to do that. They don't do that in my name. And when the nuclear weapons race was going insane, bonkers, um, about 1982, Yogi Bhajan spoke out, and he got together with some other very good people and pressured the American government and the Soviet government to cool it down. And we never got rid of the nuclear weapons, but the nuclear arms race, thank God, started to slow down. And not that they liked it. You know, President Reagan, he looked around and he saw, who is this guy, this Yogi Bhajan? He saw that he was a Sikh, and it was very shortly thereafter that Sikhs lost the right to serve in the American Armed Forces. That was the price we paid. But it was a price, worth paying. And it's still true. We still have these horrible nuclear weapons, and we haven't gotten rid of them. There's been a lot of lies told about, we have a nuclear non-proliferation treaty. Who's getting rid of their nuclear weapons? Who? We still have thousands of them. So it's a problem. Yogi Bhajan called them out, and good on him. And he told us about 1992 or 3, he gave us a beautiful talk about the disease of the computer. He said, there's going to be so much information coming at you that if you don't have a very solid mental base, you won't be able to handle it. There's going to be so much shopping and so much information and so much distraction and so much disinformation and so many lies and so much pornography. There's going to be so much stuff coming at you. You're going to have to be very, very, very solid in yourself. And if you don't learn to meditate, you're going to have a big problem. Big problem. Of course, meditation, it's a hard sell. Here we are in 2023, and we have some big social problems, and a lot of them are slowly being traced to online addictions or body issues. People are getting shame of their body. So many issues coming from people not being able to handle the internet, which can be a wonderful thing if you know how to use it, but it can also take you to hell and keep you there. So he told us about that way ahead of time, like 1992. He told us that. Yeah, and bless him, Yogi, he counseled tirelessly. Sometimes he'd have 2 phones and he'd be counseling on both sides. He worked very, very, very long days at the expense of his health. His doctors would tell him, don't work so long. But people needed him, or felt they needed him. They didn't get the message of self-reliance that he tried very hard to share with us. A lot of people just were dependent. He didn't encourage it, but people were dependent, and he had a very soft heart. And where people insisted on calling him all different days, hours of the day and night, he would counsel, and he would counsel in Los Angeles. When he came to Toronto, he would counsel. When he came wherever he went, he had a big counseling schedule. What did he counsel? He counseled people to be their best. He counseled people to be self-reliant. He counseled that they have a birthright to be healthy, happy, and holy, and original. Satnam. Yeah. And very unusual message. He told us to be better than himself. How many teachers have said that? Very, very, very few. And if you look, he encouraged us, to embrace our bodies, to embrace our uniqueness. And, we were hippies, and there was a lot of pressure to cut your hair. He said, no, you don't have to do that. And he encouraged us to be all we were born to be. He encouraged us to... It's a Sikh tradition that, Guru Nanak, he taught until he had a successor, somebody who could wear his shoes. And so that's the tradition of Yogi Bhajan. He wanted to bring us up to his level. It's a very long tradition among Sikhs. Very difficult to do. Very difficult to do. And, he also taught us to never worship a man. He gave us those 2 messages at once. Don't worship me, be better than me. Don't love me, love my teachings. Very, very important. Never worship a man. He taught us to worship, yes, to worship God, and to fear none but to fear God. He taught us to relate to the Shabad Guru. We call it Guru Granth Sahib, the words of Guru Nanak, the words of Kabir, and to honor those words and take guidance from them, but never worship a mortal. Some people couldn't handle that message. They love to idol worship. Michael Jackson, Madonna, Drake, Yogi Bhajan. What do you do with these people? Guru Nanak had them too. Jesus had them. It's a big challenge for a spiritual teacher. But you love them anyway. They're not going to follow you. They're not going to get your message. And of course, Yogi Bhajan didn't have a successor. Nobody could do that. But that didn't stop him from trying to keep the message, to get the message out, and trying to help people to grow and to grow and to grow. As it turned out, there were people hanging around the organization, just waiting to devour it. But Yogi Bhajan, not having a successor to appoint, he gave us the Granth, the Guru Granth Sahib, and he gave us the Panth. He gave us this beautiful spiritual community. That's what he gave us, and that is priceless, and we still have that. And also, he had a vision that we could become global, not be local. We could not be just bound by our culture. He encouraged us to learn Punjabi, and very early, he sent his children to school in India. He encouraged us to send our children, and early on, he hoped, there was one of his students that had an inheritance, and he encouraged him to use that inheritance to build a school. And you know what? That student, his parents said, if you use that money to do that, we're going to disinherit you. We're going to throw you out of the family. We lost those students. It was very, very difficult to put together a good and coherent school system in India. But Yogi Bhajan saw, a lot of benefits to it. He hoped to make us global citizens. We could speak Punjabi. We could not be so racist, so pink-skinned and proud of it, so elitist. We could go to India and get a nice tan and see the beauty of that culture. See the beauty of that beautiful, ancient, spiritual, very colorful culture. A lot of people, they come back from India and they look at Canada, the US, and it looks very black and white in comparison to the richness of the Indian heritage. He hoped that we would pick that up. He hoped that we would behave ourselves. He hoped that as the teachers that we would take good care of all those children. And eventually he managed to create a Miri Piri Academy. And, he sold the house that he had here in Toronto to create that. It was difficult. He had a lot of faith, and whenever he heard of abuse, he fixed it as best he could. One of the principals was found to be guilty of inappropriate touching. He was on the next plane coming back to America. He lost his status as a minister and as a teacher. Yogi Bhajan did his best from a distance to mind the situation at the Indian schools. He knew that the Indian schools would also help Indians to better understand Western culture and not to be so in awe of it. He could see we were mortals, and to help us to work together. And of course, the Chardika Lajata, very importantly, learned from an Indian. Yogi Bhajan came from India too, let's not forget, from an Indian teacher, how to play kirtan. And my God, they got good enough that they ended up playing in the Golden Temple. It was a great exercise of collaboration. Let's admit, most students who went to schools in India, most Americans, Canadians, Europeans, never took the Punjabi class seriously. They still had their subliminal racism. But Yogi Bhajan tried his best. And some of us, few of us, we kind of made it. We can speak a little Tora Punjabi bolta, no? Yeah. And when politics got really bad in India and there was a movement for Sikhs to separate, he saw the games that were being played. He saw that the Sikh separatist movement was a good way to give people in authority in India, the autocrats in India, an excuse to win an election. I mean, that was the game in the 80s. Either target the Sikhs or target the Tamils, and you can win an election by pushing down hard on either one. And also, it's a good ploy for Pakistan. If you have the Sikhs fighting their own government, that's good for Pakistan. It's good for India's arch enemy. And Yogi saw that. He saw that. He saw that the KGB was advising the Indian government. If you want to make India a secular society, you've got to get rid of the spiritual force, which is the Sikhs. You've got to beat them down. You've got to grind them down. You've got to kill their leadership. And so there was a lot that was going on behind the scenes, and most people did not see it. In Vancouver, they were raising money to buy a tank. And what in the world are you going to do with a tank in Vancouver? How are you going to get a tank? And India has hundreds of tanks. There was a lot of insanity that was going on, and Yogi Bhajan was outspoken about that insanity, and that put him on death lists. People wanted to kill him. They said, "You're not a good Sikh. You're not with us. You're against us. You're for India. You're not for Sikhs." Yogi Bhajan said, forget about this little postage-sized little country you want to have Khalistan. You mean neither Pakistan is going to give you Khalistan, nor India is going to give you Khalistan, nor America is going to back you, or Britain is going to back you like they backed Israel. There's no realistic possibility of a Khalistan. He said, instead have Sikhistan. Take Guru Nanak's message and spread it to the world. Let the whole world revel. Let the whole world blossom in the beautiful glory of Satnam. So, people tried to kill him, and there's a lot of people that didn't like that message. I think I came to 19 very powerful points that Yogi Bhajan made that some of us love him for. He took chances, he got us married, and some of the marriages didn't go so well. He sent some of us to India, and some of us it didn't go so well. And now in 2023, there are some people who are trying to destroy Yogi Bhajan's legacy and his good name. One of them, she wrote some good books. Let's see the books. She wrote a translation of the teachings of the songs of Guru Nanak and Guru Arjan and Guru Gobind Singh, called it the Peace Lagoon, back in 1971. She sequestered herself, or Yogi Bhajan put her in isolation and said, okay, you don't come out until you finish. And she took a couple of weeks to just do this whole thing, did a great job. And when she finished that, she wrote a beautiful story of Guru Nanak, Guru for the Aquarian Age. She's a very good writer. And she took up some considerable responsibility. Unfortunately, she tended to flip-flop. And she wrote about it herself in A Man Called Siri Singh Saab. She flip-flopped and ended up being pregnant. And Yogi Bhajan covered everybody as best he could. And then she wanted to marry somebody who's already married, and still Yogi Bhajan was keeping it as graceful as he could. And then some people who really hated Yogi Bhajan found that she needed money. She didn't have a husband anymore, didn't have a partner, and so they paid her to slander Yogi Bhajan. And so they wanted to have a court case that is illegal in the U.S. to pay somebody to do a court case against somebody else. Charges were dropped, but and then after that, amazingly, she came to New Mexico, and she came wanting forgiveness, and she came wanting to be friends. She came wanting to pick up her place where she had left it off. And Yogi Bhajan was very, very forgiving, but his staff was not so much. People did not want her back where she was, because she'd betrayed everybody, and she'd said some very cruel, nasty things. Funny thing is that there's a woman called Ma. She had an ashram, and she loved to come around in those days, and she's very blunt. And she asked this woman, she said, because she was making allegations during that court case, she said, "Did you screw Yogi Bhajan?" And this woman was very embarrassed and didn't say anything. And she repeated the question. And she said, yeah, I know you didn't. Because if you did, you wouldn't slander him the way you did. You know? And so, we all knew that it was a pack of lies. But, she ended up writing another book and making some money and gathering forces against Yogi Bhajan. And, it's a sad day. I remember I saw a video of some of her allegations, and one of her cohorts came from Toronto. I knew the guy really well. He used to beat people up. He was head of the ashram. When Yogi Bhajan came, he would take him in private and yell at him because he was so ill-mannered. And, you don't be the head of a spiritual community with your fists. And there was a bunch of people. I wonder if he remembers even their names. I do. I remember there was Anush, and there was Ipsener, Doug. There was Doug, and there was John, and there was Preston, and there was Liftar, and maybe somebody I left out. They all got beat up by this guy. And when you get beat up by the head of the ashram, they show you the door. Your name is mud then. How dare you fight with the head of the ashram? But the guy, he would pick a fight with these guys. He would put them in a place where they couldn't back down, and then he would get rid of them. I think, who knows? His wife was very discreet. Did he beat up his wife as well? We can't say. But why did she move from from Toronto to live in Los Angeles and basically not come back? So this guy now is all gung-ho that Yogi Bhajan's a bad person and that the writer of all these books is a wonderful person. I see some problems there. I see some bullying, and he's still on a very destructive path. The other group that's very, gung-ho about Yogi Bhajan's a bad person are some of the people that went to India. And they say they were abused, and they say they were neglected, and they have a lot of stories. I recognize that Yogi Bhajan had a very tough choice. I mean, he was hopeful. He was hopeful that people go to India and would learn a lot. He was hopeful that by sending our children to India, we could focus on creating a very powerful community, powerful businesses, and teach well, get a lot done. Didn't always go that way. But I don't blame Yogi Bhajan. He did his very best. And he was utterly responsible, not only to us, but to the world. The impact of his work, if you look at those 19 things that he shared with us, and the work that is still going on, still the lives that have been changed through Kundalini Yoga, the lives that have been changed through Sikh Dharma, the lives that have been changed through his counseling. He did a lot, and I think it's sad to be blaming him. There's one way to look at this. If you are coming to Yogi Bhajan with a teary story and feeling you're a victim, there's an element of, I feel for you, but look at yourself. We're not born to be victims. And if you meditate deeply, you'll see that there's a purpose in everything. And that we can take bad and make it good with a change in attitude, with creativity, and with, heaven help you, Kundalini Yoga. I did a couple of academic papers on this. Kundalini Yoga can help you treat PTSD. So if you have trauma, pick up some Kundalini Yoga and do it. And find your Satnam. Find your smiley, beautiful, original self. And don't blame people. If you're blaming Yogi Bhajan, there's two problems that I see. One is you don't know yourself. You don't know your strength. You don't know your power. You don't know your Satnam. And the other, you don't have a clue who Yogi Bhajan was. You don't know his majesty and his generosity and his courage in coming here in 1968 when Sikhs were the butt of a lot of jokes. Sikhs were the victims of racism. Um, he came with nothing, and he created a beautiful, beautiful spiritual family. So, I mean, people have different destinies, and if you want to be a blamer, be a blamer. Um, but there's no happiness in it. There isn't. It's a sad story. Um, that's it's Father's Day, and I'm very grateful to my three fathers, and I'm very grateful for all they've given me in this life. I feel very enriched, and what do I do with those blessings? I share them. You know, there were rich role models there, and I share those teachings, and I share those blessings, and I share my presence. I share my Satnam. Yogi Bhajan said, you know, the path of a leads from Satnam to Waheguru. You know, first be yourself, be true to yourself, do your sadhana, polish yourself so you don't accumulate dust and rust, and you keep shining through your whole life, through your middle age crisis, through your old age. Don't have any crisis. Don't have a nice day. Have a great day. Have a great life, and you know, that's what we want to do. There's a lot of happiness. There's a lot of joy in that, and I'm so grateful. And thank you for sticking with me. This ended up being a rather long video. I wish you all the blessings. May the long time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Sataram.